Howdy. Calculating the lifespan of a video game can be such a tricky thing to do. You gotta take so many things into consideration, genre, release date, creator, whether or not the general public actually gives a shit. It's all up in the air. Hell, some games have lasted longer than my entire life, while some of them are the Anglo-Zanzibar War. Usually fighting and racing games are the catalyst to be some of the shortest lived. Think of Tekken, Mortal Kombat, Forza, and so on. But every so often, we do get a game, or even a franchise, that lives past a couple of years. Enter Super Smash Bros. And Mario Kart. Now, before we go on, because these games came out during my Goo Goo Gaga days, I had to get some help from an outside source. My brother Sean is going to be helping me with this through a phone conversation I had with him earlier. He's going to tell me what it was like to play these games during the early and mid-2000s. These two franchises, through nostalgia and whatever else comes in that magic sauce Nintendo puts in their games, all seem to last way past the average game's lifespan. This concept could take up its own video, but I want to focus on the two previously mentioned franchises and see how time has treated them. First up,
Super Smash Brothers!
Mario Kart Double Dash. To start off, I just want to take a second to outline these games and give some basic information. Super Smash Bros. Melee came out 2 months after the GameCube's release on November 21st, 2000, and it never really looked back. Selling 7.41 million copies, Melee took its predecessor's revolutionary gameplay and built up a masterpiece. The previous game's roster is more than doubled this time, with 26 playable characters and 12 of these being unlockable. The graphics propelled the aesthetic of Nintendo characters into a new era, the concept of percent damage and descendable ledges were established as Smash Bros. Staples, and the control scheme made certain moves a dream to pull off.
Just hitting counter at the right time was nice, even though that was probably annoying to anyone else. Standard B, that was fun and powerful.
Melee also provided multiple other modes on top of the core fighting gameplay like Classic Mode, Target Smash, Home Run Derby, etc. The list goes on and on. It's definitely a noticeable improvement from the handful of modes in the original Smash Bros. Mario Kart Double Dash came out 2 years later on November 7th, 2003, and ended up selling 6.96 million copies. The core gameplay, well...
A racing game where you have two people on a cart, and you can hinder your opponent with items as you race around a track 3 times.
Yes, after looking at numerous studies, I can confirm that the race does contain 3 laps and a raking system. But there is one mechanic that is so brand new to the racing genre that it separates this game from all other racing games. Unnecessary health concerns. This time 2 characters are on a cart, one in the front doing the actual, racing, and the other practicing their juggling skills. Well, the second person does more than just hold on to other items. They can also punch nearby racers and... yeah, I got nothing. Double Dash introduces 10 new characters into the mix and brings back Koopa Troopa. Oh, thank God. With a 2-character system in play, new items were introduced to pertain specifically to certain pairs. Mario and Luigi get fireballs, Toad and Toadette get golden mushrooms.
Those bastards!
King Boo and Petey Piranha get whatever the fuck they want, and Koopa Troopa and Paratroopa get triple shells.
Those bastards!
Other characters have other special items, but the rest of the gameplay is pretty self-explanatory. Go fast, physically harm other racers, and win races. You can go through different cups, win trophies, unlock different carts and characters, and play in battle mode. All pretty standard Mario Kart stuff we get to this day. Both of these games seem to be very impressive on the paper, and you'd think they would lend themselves well to a long lifespan, but there's more to the story than what's on paper. Both of these games have very multiplayer-friendly concepts. One gives the option to play with someone to race efficiently, while the other emphasizes the competitive nature of fighting. But it's in that very sentence that lies one of the core differences in these games and their longevity. With versus against. There's not really a competitive nature to Double Dash. If I were to ask someone if I wanted to play them in a best of 3 cup challenge in Double Dash, I'd look like Harrison Ford on the set of Call of the Wild. The whole 2-player mechanic really takes away from any 4-player incentive. Double Dash naturally commits to this 2-player multiplayer system, for better or for worse. At the same time, Smash embraces the idea of competing against computers and friends alike. If I ask someone if they want to play me in a couple matches of Melee, shit immediately starts to get real. You can play on teams of 2 or 3, but Melee really directs itself more to the individual, specifically the player feeling accomplishment from beating someone else's with their own skills. While completion is a part of the game, the real meat and potatoes lie in learning the ins and outs of all 26 characters, truly mastering 1 or 2 of them, learning the different stages, and discovering gameplay mechanics to help you improve your skills, whether intended or not. Competition is a central part of any game's shelf life. That's just the way games and gamers work. Every person that has ever played a video game fits somewhere on the spectrum between casual and hardcore. People who prefer the teamwork-friendly oriented gameplay of Double Dash would lie more on the casual side, while Melee players by nature are more hardcore. The word passion doesn't really apply to any casual gamer, and because of that, games that lend themselves to the casual crowd tend to have shorter lifespans. They're more likely to be bought, played for a week or two, and then left on the shelf for the rest of their time. While multiplayer games naturally have a shorter lifespan than most purely because of the needed commitment of multiple people, the hardcore crowd is more likely to feel a connection towards the game and embrace it for months and even years on end. Passion is rooted in the hardcore gamer's brain, which leads to my next point. If you don't know, Super Smash Bros. Melee has a legendary community with tons of notable figures. Multiple famous streamers like Ludwig, Mango, and Atrioc all have their roots in Melee, while prominent players like Armada, Mewtwo King, and Ken, and so on have created a sort of mythical history behind the community. I could go on and on about figures and tournament moments, but if you really want to learn about the history of competitive Melee, I'd recommend a handful of documentaries I'll leave in the description. Super Smash Bros. Melee has lasted longer than the GameCube itself, and a lot of that is attributed to the competitive scene. There are still rising players who pick up this game every week to join the community of an almost 20-plus-year-old game. In contrast, Double Dash doesn't really have a community. There is a little bit of a speedrunning community for the game, but at the moment, the community is nowhere near the size of Melee's. Double Dash leaves behind a positive note in players' memories, but surprisingly no real reason to go back to it. I've seen a couple videos of people revisiting the game and making something of a retrospective video, but I couldn't really find any dedicated community or person who uses the game for consistent content. The whole reason for playing this game is to complete all the cups and maybe get your times up on time trials, but it seems that players don't really go back to the game all that often. You'd think with such a unique gameplay mechanic like two-player karting, people would at least pick up the game once every so often, but that doesn't seem to be the case. You don't hear any legends about Double Dash's moments or any history behind it. All we really hear about it is, it was in fact a Mario Kart and it is in fact a Double Dash. Of course with Melee you could say the same thing, but the legends behind both the creation of the game and the legendary gameplay moments make for a legacy that makes people either want to come back to it or pick it up for the first time. Masahiro Sakurai developed this beauty of a game in 13 months. Think about that. Games like God of War, Fallout, and Final Fantasy take years to polish, while Sakurai created Melee in just about 1 year. Melee also had a dedicated website that explained some characters' inclusions while explaining why some characters weren't in the game. And of course, we can't mention Legacy without mentioning this legendary video.
Happy feet, wombo combo. That ain't Falco. That ain't Falco. Where you at?
I could go on and on about other topics like how gameplay lends itself to longevity and initial reception and so on, but in the end, I think there's only one person that can conclude this topic best.
If it's just by myself, Melee would just be an easier pick up and play experience.
Both of these two games were the top sellers of the GameCube, selling almost the same amount of units. But the bottom line is simple, Melee just has more depth to it. With aspects such as a large community, a hardcore community at that, and a legendary history, Super Smash Bros. Melee has all the makings of a game with such a long lifespan. While in contrast, even though Mario Kart Double Dash has 2 whole exclamation points to it, it doesn't really seem to have all that much excitement. And look, there may be some bias on my part. After all, I do watch competitive Melee whenever I get the chance. But hey, at the end of the day, I'm just a college student looking at it from the outside in. Thank you.